All right, Cody here for Module 12. I hope you're ready for some coffee because we are back in Java. So this is my Spring Boot application for managing a food delivery service. It handles restaurants, customers, couriers, orders, and authentication. And the project follows a layered architecture using REST APIs and integrates with a relational database using JPA and native SQL. I'm going to go through the folders real quick. So it's my controller folder. Contains REST controllers that define the endpoints for interacting with the application. Controllers receive HTTP requests, delegate processing to services, and return responses. For example, my user controller. Actually, let's do a different one than that. My restaurant API controller. So here it's going to handle creating a restaurant. I've got my delete. So it's all my CRUD operations here. Um, so delete restaurant by ID. Got my update, restaurant details, and then filter restaurants by rating and price range. So my next folder that I have is the DTOS, which stands for Data Transfer Objects, and this defines request and response shapes for API communication. DTOs help separate the internal data structure from what we expose externally. Let's do so this DTO is used to encapsulate the data required to retrieve an order. It includes fields for the order's ID and type, typically used when making requests to the API to fetch order details based on the specific ID and type. And the structure allows the backend to process the request and return the appropriate order information. So next folder is the exception files. So custom exceptions like bad request exception and resource not found exception is used to return consistent error messages with proper HTTP status codes. And then I have a global exception handler as well, which maps exceptions to error responses. So next I have my models, which this clicked pretty quick for me because in Java, it just reminds me of schemas. So uh, JPA entities that represent tables in the database. And they use different annotations to manage relationships like one to many, many to one. Let's find one that has that. Yeah, here, many to one. I have my repository files, which interfaces for data accessing using Spring Data JPA, and it handles all the CRUD operations for entities like restaurant, product, and order. So, for example, I'm gonna update a restaurant name, price range, and phone number by ID. It retrieves a restaurant record by ID. Just deletes the restaurant by the ID. And then some of them have custom native SQL for more complex queries. All right, then I have my security folder, which has the files that manage authentication and JWT tokens. And they also validates users using Spring Security, turns tokens for sessionless login. Okay, so my folder for service, which has all of the business logic layer. So it coordinates repository access and handles validation and transformations. And my utility file, which contains helper classes, like the response builder, to format the API response. So it promotes code reuse and clean controller logic. We have the data seeder, which helps, populate the database that first time. And I'm going to do this last, but this is my test folder with the integration and unit test classes for validating endpoint functionality. So it proves that endpoints behave correctly under expected and error conditions. So next I'm going to show my endpoints. Try to do this correctly. All right, so we've got the get restaurants. All right, so we do that and we get the list of restaurants sorted by rating. Or not ratings. Yes, it is sorted by rating. So it has the success message, ID, name, rating, price range. But here we can create a new restaurant. So in the body, I've got follows the specs, user ID, and then the name of the restaurant, phone number, email, price range, and then the address. Here is the put or the edit of the, let's do this here. So I was able to update the price range using the ID of the specific restaurant. Let's see, before I delete that, ID. Let's go ahead and do this one next. So this is the endpoint to get um, the customer by ID. So this is all the orders and their information. So many endpoints that I'm getting them a little bit confused, but the API restaurants by ID here, I think it's by the to show that it successfully went through. This is to get specific user, their information. We can go ahead and delete a restaurant by ID. Success restaurant with ID 13 successfully deleted. This is to get the token, and I'm going to do this last because I'm not sure if I do this, the token that I have that I'm using on all these, that's still going to be valid because it's going to be the same user. Okay, so this is to get the products by the user ID or the restaurant. So go here. Here we can create some new orders using the customer ID, restaurant ID, and then the products. That gives me a correct status. And we can have the orders and then the ID and the status to make sure that it's been delivered. There we go. Go ahead and try this one out now. Okay, so we need to select correct. Okay, so this one does work. Just need to go into the database to get correct restaurant number, and there we go. Restaurant with ID 14 deleted successfully. And try this. I'll just set up. Okay. Well, you'll see that a couple of the errors are showing. Um, those are working. I just need to go into the database and get a with one. I believe I showed them all. Okay. So yeah. So there's the Postman tests. And then I'm going to run on to testing. So we'll start with my order API controller tests. So this is going to here. All right. So I created tests that check both happy paths and unhappy paths or success and validation. So test class for the API controller. So this is a test case for getting orders by type with an invalid restaurant ID, for getting orders by type with missing parameters, creating an order with missing parameters, updating order status, test case for updating the status with an invalid order ID, and you see all the tests have passed. The product API controller. So also pass fails tests I created for each one of these. So getting products by restaurant with no products found, and test case for the products. There we go. Boom, boom, boom. Success not found. And then the last one is the restaurant controller tests. So test case for restaurant controller. All right. Creating a restaurant with invalid data. So you have your success and your fail. For updating restaurant with invalid data, updating a restaurant that does not exist, getting a restaurant by ID, getting all restaurants with invalid parameters, getting a restaurant by ID. Oh, yeah. Deleting a restaurant that does not exist. Let's see that all those passed. All right. So yeah, so this app showcases a real-world backend system with user authentication, relational mapping, custom error handling, and clean separation of concerns through DTOs, services, and repositories. It's fully testable and uses RESTful principles. So that wraps up my demo for Module 12. Thank you.